Coming up on Network Africa, South Africa's High Court sentences 23-year-old Henry van Breda to life in prison. Reactions trailed June 12 as New Democracy Day in Nigeria in honor of late politician MKO Abiola. In Kenya's aviation authorities find the missing crashed plane in the Aberdares forest with no survivors. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker. We begin today in South Africa, where a man who murdered his parents and brother with an axe has been sentenced to life in prison. 23-year-old Henry van Breda was also given 15 years for the attempted murder of his teenage sister Marley during the frenzied January 2015 attack. High Court Judge Siraj Desai said that the cold-blooded murders have been carried out with excessive and gratuitous violence. However, Van Breda's defense lawyer says he intends to appeal. The case has horrified South Africans, with one paramedic telling the court that the scene in the family's home was the worst thing he had seen in a career spanning almost 4 decades.
Each murderous attack upon a family member constitutes a very serious crime, warranting the severest penalty possible, with the victims unarmed and defenseless. It was a cold-blooded murder. The violence was excessive and gratuitous. It was intended to cause maximum harm. The 3 victims died with the wounds caused by the axe you wielded against them. The 4th survived, albeit with serious injuries. The clear intent was to kill her as well. We have no explanation for what you did. You have displayed no remorse. Society expects violent crimes to be evaluated with sufficient seriousness. The murder of Rudy van Breda, you are sentenced to life imprisonment. On count 2, the murder of Martin van Breda, you are sentenced to life in prison.
Joining us now is a South African journalist, Becky Methula. Good to hear from you again, Becky. How are South Africans reacting to the life sentence handed down to Van Breda for murdering his family?
Good evening. Most people are very happy with the verdict, even though there are some complications here and there. Some people feel that no, he deserves to die just like the parents did. But most people suggest that, keeping him in jail for life is still a wastage because the government has to feed him and all that. But they are happy that he is not getting out scot-free.
It's really a sad story, what happened to the family. Did the court establish a motive behind the vicious attack?
No, at the end of the trial, they did not establish a motive because he did not also admit to guilt or give the motive. All he did the whole time was maintain his innocence. So the court ended up not establishing what was the motive for the murder.
We also hear it's a win for the police investigative team and state prosecutors, but the defense plans to appeal the sentence. What are their chances, if you know?
Well, with the justice system the way it is, you can never know. But at the end of the day, they have the right to make an appeal. But the judge did have solid evidence. I mean, the state did have solid evidence against him. I mean, the judge went to the complex where the murder happened and saw that, the security was very tight there. Everything was sealed. So there was no intruder. There was no chance of an intruder coming in. They have their right to make an appeal, but I really doubt it will go any further.
Finally, how about Marley, his sister? What's the latest about her recovery?
Okay, Marley is said to be distressed at the moment, but she is currently living with the uncle and aunt. And the legal representative of the family has asked that, she must just be kept that way. She's still recovering from the wounds, but she's said to be stable and doing very well.
All right, thank you so much, Becky Methula, South African journalist, for joining us. Nigeria now has a new date to commemorate its transition to self-rule, and that is the 12th of June, as against the current arrangement where the ceremony holds on the 29th of May. President Muhammadu Buhari made the declaration on both his Twitter handle and in a press statement, with the highest national honor of Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, GCFR, posthumously conferred on Chief Moshood Abiola, the acclaimed winner of the 1993 presidential election. The statement explains that for the past 18 years, Nigerians have been celebrating May the 29th as Democracy Day, but that June the 12th, 1993 is far more symbolic of democracy in the Nigerian context than May the 29th. According to the statement, the commemoration and investiture will take place on June the 12th, 2018, a date which would now replace May the 29th as a national public holiday in celebration of Nigeria's democracy. Meanwhile, the Senate has asked the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to announce the results of the June 12, 1993 elections. Meanwhile, family members of the late politician are happy about the honor bestowed on their father. His daughter, who's the founder of the Kudirat Initiative for Democracy, Hafsat Bello Castello, says the family appreciates the declaration, which she believes is long overdue.
I cannot believe it. I still pray that it's not that somebody will wake me up and say, I was sleeping or something. I just cannot believe it. It's so long overdue. 25 years. You know, it should have been done in 1999. It should have been done, June 12th should have been declared the day of transition in 1999. It was not. And that was already a signal that Nigerians were going to be cheated. We had fought soldiers, we had fought the army that wanted to oppress and dictate to us. And now that it's time for us to now begin this new democratic transition, it was as if they pulled out someone that would continue to protect their interest and not recognize and validate the interests and needs and rights of the people of Nigeria. We saw with June 12th that even before an army with soldiers that are armed, journalists came out, wrote articles. I mean, people were on the streets. Labor unions went on strike. Market women went on strike and shut down a powerful military dictatorship. So now, if we want this democracy to continue to deliver for us, we must be prepared to continually engage, continually challenge and demand, because the whole freedom, not just of Nigeria, but of Africa and indeed of the black world, is resting on Nigeria. So we cannot get Nigeria wrong.
Well, joining us to discuss this further is a human rights activist, Olatunji Lanre-Barua, who joins us from our Abuja studios. Good to have you on the program. My first question was really going to be, where were you June 12, 1993? And if I should ask you as well, following the change as the new Democracy Day instead of May the 29th, is it a victory for democracy?
It is. It is good to see you, Millicent. It is victory for democracy. June 12, 1999, I was about a year and some months below the voting age. I was not able to vote to be part of that election. But I observed everything that happened on June 12, 1993. You know, physically, I was right there around the people who were voting, who were watching out for troublemakers in my neighborhood. And after the news of the annulment, I was also, you know, among the crowd that gathered at the Oroshoki end of the Third Mainland Bridge. I remember some activists dumped heaps and heaps of sand on the Third Mainland Bridge to block traffic. But almost 25 years later, it is indeed victory for democracy. I'm so excited. It's personal for me because that very day when the protests that followed the annulment, you know, brought in me a spirit of resistance against injustice. I vow never to look back and to resist injustice in Nigeria and oppression and the repression that followed in the years later. And we are grateful for this decision. It is a landmark one. And I think everybody needs to come together to celebrate this. This is a very good one.
The main opposition, the People's Democratic Party, is saying that President Buhari's decision is a mark of desperation ahead of the 2019 elections. How would you react to this accusation?
Well, it's just, it's ridiculous. That particular line of thought is ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. It's never too late to do what is right. Whatever motive you have to do what is right is okay by a lot of us. It's okay by activists. It's okay by the families of people who are repressed and oppressed during June 12. Whatever you do, as long as it is right, whatever motive you have in mind, must have come through some bit of courage. And I think playing politics and talking about, oh, mischief around this is ridiculous. I think for once, people need to gather together and understand and accept that June 12 was significant. It was the reason why we are where we are today. If it wasn't for June 12, the resistance would not have come. MKO Abiola would not have been locked up, and even his death led to the transition in 1999.
So are you part of those that believe that the fallout of the annulled election is responsible for the derailment of justice presently in the country?
Sorry, can you take that again?
Are you part of those that believe that the fallout of the annulled election is responsible for the derailment of justice in the country?
I think a lot of things, the spirit of June 12 has embedded in it, you know, the spirit of justice, the spirit of fairness, the spirit of peace, and even unity, and all this has eluded Nigeria since the annulment of that election. We've had distrust all over Nigeria. Imagine a Muslim ticket in Nigeria being voted for in the South, being voted for in the Southeast, being voted for even in the Christian North. You know, in the Middle Belt, that is predominantly Christian in Nigeria. You can't have that kind of situation today. Even in Lagos, people, you know, are complaining about, oh, we've had repeated Muslim governors. But in 1993, we voted for a Muslim ticket, and people were not grumbling. It was with excitement. We celebrated that victory. And so when you bury and, you know, annul that election and you refuse to acknowledge its importance in the history of Nigeria, it is injustice. And it took a lot of injustice that were piled on that injustice in itself. A lot of people were killed, activists were killed, businesses were destroyed, lives were destroyed. A lot of children ended up without parents, without fathers, without mothers. People were chased out of this country. And you cannot talk about those actions of that period without talking about why Nigeria have derailed over the last couple of years and decades.
Former Minister of Education, Dr. Ezekwesili, has urged the president to honor posthumously as well Mrs. Kudirat Abiola, who also paid the supreme prize in defense of democracy. Do you see this happening? And if I might also add, Remi Shonaya, former presidential candidate, said that, okay, we've gotten this for the victims. How about the perpetrators?
I'm 110% with both, you know, positions. I think Kudirat Abiola is a significant figure also in that struggle. She's one of the women that was killed in the course of the demand for the actualization of the mandate. And also, we have to also talk and have a conversation in this country that, oh, it's okay that we have restored, you know, the dignity of June 12. We have, you know, moved Democracy Day to June 12. And it's also okay we have honored MKO Abiola. There were a lot of other people, Frederick Wani, a lot of people, Bagauda Kato, a lot of people that were killed in the course of this, you know, resistance. Most of them were killed through state-sponsored terrorists and all that. People, you know, lives were taken. And we need to start asking ourselves the hard question: are we going to get justice for this family? Is government going to compensate these families? Are we going to also honor these people? Because this democracy belongs to all of us. And we will celebrate this.
And finally,
a great day for us.
Finally, Mr. Larry Baruwa, do you see June 12 as a sign validating the integrity of fair and free future elections in Nigeria?
The spirit of June 12 demands that going forward. The spirit of June 12 means that if we have acknowledged that June 12 was one of the most important dates that led us to this dispensation, it means also we have to embrace all the principles that came with it. We have to embrace the unity that June 12 signifies. We have to embrace, you know, there's a togetherness that came with that particular election. And it means that we have to allow free and fair election to, to count in Nigeria. We have to allow people to vote and let people be voted for. And election just doesn't have to be transparent. They have to be seen to be transparent and, be acknowledged by everybody who participates in them, that this election is transparent. So that's the spirit of June 12, and that's where we should be aiming for. That's what we should be aiming for in 2019 and in all the elections that will come before then.
All right, thank you for your thoughts, Mr. Olatunji Lanre, human rights activist, joining us from Abuja studios. Still to come on the program, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi pardons 712 prisoners. Please stay with us.